Hello. HSR. HSR. Honestly, a lot of people have been playing for a long time. I've been playing for a long time, especially if you look at my UID. Sealy was my first character, and I pretty much collected everyone after that except Blue Orchard because I don't like his design. But regardless, I want to talk about the community. And more specifically, how the community of a game can kind of ruin it. Or at least in this instance, we'll talk about HSR specifically. I kind of make one separately for Genshin Impact and for Blue Archive because I think that's worthy of a talk. So hey, subscribe if you're interested in that. First off, let's be honest here. If you are any player of HSR, you already know, or any player of HoYoverse games in general, you know that drama is constant. I don't even know what the last drama was about. But what I do know is we have it pretty consistently, for no reason whatsoever. And I do think this does affect people's outlook of the game. And I'm not talking about, oh, their outlook on the gacha of the game, or their outlook on the designs of characters, or the meta itself. I'm talking about the outlook people have when they get into the game and actually play it. Whether they're going for the characters you like, whether you're looking at, can I look for guides? Can I look for assistance of people who play this game? Or maybe their opinion on the story of the game. This is a pretty large story. And now, aside from the whole Genshin could never, which pops up unnecessarily everywhere, and the fact that any tall female character is going to be called mommy, and any other male character who's tall is going to be called daddy, for no reason whatsoever. Like, it's the most redundant compliment you could ever give in any sort of game, like at least to be unique. I think on one hand, if there's an interesting character in any capacity, whether it's Jingliu, whether it's Fushuan, or actually we'll ignore her because of how the community apparently views her as a child 20% of the time, whether it's Jingliu, Black Swan, or Kafka, I think the community's hypersexualization of any character, whether they're male or female, doesn't matter, does significantly ruin the experience. Like for me, I hated Kafka specifically because of how the community portrayed her. I didn't even know anything about this character yet. I still hate her as a result of that. And I think this does come to a point to where you can have a legitimately interesting character with a good story, whether it's an event story like HoYoverse, which I actually quite liked, or whether it's someone who has a large part to play in the overarching story of a region. It can significantly ruin that because all you're thinking about is the preconceived notions you have from the community's perspective. Now, yes, in some cases this does work. For instance, Pinakani. Everybody liked Pinakani's story. They said it was a great story, the best one in HSR so far, yada yada. The downside is, the community for HSR loves to fucking spoil things, like unnecessarily spoil things. And so if you have that, combined with the hype around a story, combined with the ruining of any character who's remotely adult-like, or at least has the tall model in the game, it doesn't exactly give people a good opinion, at least going into it. Now, I for one do have fun playing this game, to a decent degree. And I obviously have my favorites, like Clara and HoYo. But when it comes to investing myself into the future stories, whether it's stories featuring characters like Sparkle or Black Swan, or even stories in the past, such as Imbiber Lunai's transformation thing in the Xian. The downside you kind of face is, if you're not already spoiled on that, whether that be by the leaks, whether that be by the individual community videos with the thumbnails, which just spoil, hey, there's a giant scene coming, but it looks nice, so this is perfect for a thumbnail, you still have to get through and deal with actually talking about any of the characters in the story itself. And if there are anything, like if there's a Kafka moment, or a Imbiber Lunai moment, or even a Jingyuan moment, that all that's going to be reduced to is simping. For instance, in Genshin at least, one of the bigger downsides you have is Risley, who is a unique character with a deep personality and is very intriguing in the story. He was reduced to, damn, he has a fat ass. That is it. And that's all I knew him for. So my personal recommendation that I've learned with HoYoverse games, especially with HSR or Genshin, because the two fandoms kind of hate each other, is if you're interested in this story and trying to get invested to, either A, ignore the community if you can, if you won't be summoning for future characters that is, or B, wait a while. For me personally, when it came down to stuff like the horror event, what you see here, or any of these, I took a break. For instance, I did all of this when it came out, but once we actually started branching off to a Foxy and Tail, and once Argenti's banner came around, I took a gap. So I didn't do Pinakani until I needed to, which was for Black Swan's materials. But in regard to Ruan Mei's story, I completely skipped over that. I took a month-long break from HSR, and what that allowed me to do is, yeah, I still hated Pinakani, but I think I hated that more so due to how the community was like, this is amazing, this is peak, every character in here is hot, they're amazing, they're wonderful. It kind of fucked it up for me. But I think if you go back to any previous story, if we could actually like replay them, which I do believe should be a feature, because I do want to legitimately look at the stories and be like, hey, was this good, or was I just saying fuck the community, so as a result, fuck their opinions on the story? I'm swearing a lot in this video. But I do believe it's better if you've already been spoiled, or if you have a negative perception already, to go in either later or to just try to blot out the opinions that you already have. Because regardless of whether the story is good or bad or whatever, if you already think you're going to hate it, you are just going to find reasons to dislike it. And I think it makes it so much worse, not only necessarily with how the community perceives events, but subsequently also how they like to fixate on certain aspects. I knew Firefly was going to die before I started this entire quest. Like, before I even met Acheron in this instant, I knew Firefly was dead. So when I saw her on screen, I was like, oh, that's a dead girl. So none of this mattered to me. None of these supposedly important scenes mattered to me. So it does ruin things. And yes, it's a concept of spoilers, and obviously that plays into how much of the game you view, but it subsequently plays into how the community itself. You're going to dislike HSR and its community if all you see about HSR is constant drama every second of every day. You're going to hate it if you try to look up a guide for a video on a character. Maybe you really like them. Maybe you're interested in Acheron, and all you're seeing is people simping for her. So as you watch the video and try to get assistance for building out your character, you just slowly dislike the concept in general. And this doesn't apply to just recent characters, this applies to any character. As long as they are a popularized 5-star, or realistically, as long as they're not like a standard character, people are going to slowly ruin them over time. The only ones who are safe are like Hook. That is it. Hook and maybe Lynx. That's about it. Yanjing, ruined. Jing Yuan, Sparkle, etc., all of them ruined. There are a very select few characters who people won't actively decide to just fuck up the characterization of, and usually that depends on if they're actually seen in the story or not. And most of the time, the general perception by the community will be inaccurate to how they're actually portrayed in the story and or lore. But hey, who needs accuracy when you can just say Kafka's hot and 90% of people will just agree with you without any further context? Also, her character design is awful.